Good morning and welcome to Tuesday, October the 27th in the year that shall not be named. This is CosmoQuest Community Coffee. I'm your host, Gillian Rhodes. It is not Monday as it usually is when I have my coffee art time, but it is Tuesday and we're going to pretend that it's time for coffee art because it is always time for coffee art in my book. And after months of you just listening to me blabbling on my own, I have finally a wonderful guest to bring you today, which you have seen and met recently at the Hangoutathon, which if you missed it, was 36 hours of insanity and fun and games and wonderfulness. Um, and we're back to our normally scheduled programming now. So Tyler Nordgren is joining me. He's an astronomer, an artist, an educator, advocate for dark skies, and he makes these really amazing posters that he's going to talk to us about. So thank you for joining me, Tyler.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I was so happy to be here.
Yeah, I stumbled. I don't know if I stumbled or I was directed to your website. I think I was looking for eclipse art earlier in the summer because I was kind of on a tangent about that. And Mike Simmons posted an eclipse art group for me, and somebody sent me your website.
Oh.
And so I went and I looked, and I was just like, I can't use this right now, but I'm going to bookmark it for later. And so when I kind of came back to myself because I was away for a while, I was just like, definitely we're going to have to talk to this person because the posters are just incredible. So could you just briefly, introduce yourself and your work and just tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So I'm a PhD astronomer. I got my PhD from Cornell University back in the 90s, doing work on dark matter.
Oh, nice.
But but I have had a side interest ever since I was a little kid of artwork. In fact, it was one of these things back when I was in college, where I was sure I was going to be an astronaut. And I had to decide, do I want to pursue astronomy and being an astronaut, or do I want to pursue art? And I actually thought I made the decision it would be easier to get a job as an astronomer that did art on the side. And well, anyway, we can talk about how full circle this has all come. But I was a university professor for 17, 18 years, and along the way began doing astronomically themed artwork for US national parks that just expanded. It blew up, and in fact, it became an even bigger side business than my day job at the
Wow.
university. So for the last 10 years, I've been doing artwork as a professional artist for national parks, NASA, and various other environmental green organizations.
That's interesting. You know, it's funny because I also when I went to university, I was planning to double major in dance and astrophysics, and I kind of went the other direction as I was just like, I don't have the patience for astrophysics, so dance is going to be easier. I didn't necessarily think about career options. I was just like, this is going to be easier for me to handle.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Um,
as a professor, I was at a small liberal arts university, and we would get physics majors that would double in music or mathematics or history. And so I love that interplay between the sciences and the humanities and art, because there are all sorts of ways they can work together. And no one person is either a math person or an art person. We're all people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's something that, it's just important to talk about because, everybody was so surprised. It's like, oh, you're going to do that so different, that's so unique. And I'm just like, I don't know, they're their thing.
Yeah.
But like, I think a lot of, like you said, you were looking to be a professional astronomer with being an artist on the side. And like, what was the thing that kind of sparked you to put your art and your work together, like to bring them together? Were you making non-space related art before that, and then you just kind of brought it in, or how did that happen?
So originally, the artwork I did was political cartoons. I worked for
Okay.
various newspapers, all the way from high school to graduate school to afterwards. Uh, but I'll be honest, in back in 2000 during the election there, politics stopped being fun. And so I totally got away from it. I began hiking, getting out in the countryside, doing night sky photography as kind of a way of sort of rejuvenating my soul and getting away from politics. And over time, that night sky photography turned into, well, I want to find a way of portraying this stars and sky and landscape in some other medium. And at that time, I was working on a book about astronomy in the national parks. I wanted there to be evocative art other than just photos, but I couldn't pay anybody to provide me the artwork. So I thought, well, I can do this. And so I began to get back into that drawing that I had done as a cartoonist, but this time from a more graphic sensibility. And it wound up being this thing that, as well received as the book was, the art was what really captured people's interests. And that has now become my full-time career at this point.
Yeah, which is amazing. And so the posters, it's a very particular style, and it is kind of like that cartoon newspaper sort of style. So, kind of talk us through a little bit like the process of making, like what are you using? Is it digital? Is it, marker? Like what's the process in the medium for making these?
So first of all, the style that I'm kind of going for in this artwork is this 1930s lithograph style that is commonly associated here in the U.S. with the WPA, the Works Progress Administration. And the idea was these were government funded artists who were using this lithography to inform people about recycling or health or going and visiting, say, national parks. So I love that style and I love the idea of educating through artwork. And so I thought, okay, let me see if I can use this, not only the style that I love, but also for the purpose that it was used for, to educate people.
Mm.
So I do all my work digitally, but some of it's also pen and ink. So that 1930s style, all right, people were using brushes and pens. So to get that feel, I'll draw things out in pen and ink on paper, scan it into the computer, put it into Adobe Illustrator, clean things up, and then apply the coloring there.
Okay.
Um, but as time has gone on, I've actually done less and less of the pen and more just straight into Illustrator to begin with. But and I've got a stylus, an electronic stylus, and a tablet. Gosh, that tablet's about 10 years old at this point. Maybe I ought to get a new one. But anyway, so that's my process. I've got a laptop with the pad and the stylus, and it's all done through Illustrator.
Okay. That's interesting. And so do you start kind of with the message that you want to bring on across, or do you start with an image or a color? Like what's kind of the first thing that begins?
So let's see. So you found me through my Eclipse artwork, and
Yeah.
what really started that was the big 2017 Great American Eclipse, the
Right.
first total solar eclipse to cross the U.S. or even to touch the mainland U.S. in like 38 years.
Right.
So the key message I wanted to get across there was, hey, people, first of all, this something really good and amazing is happening on this date. Here's what it is very briefly, and here's where you can go in order to see this. Don't miss it. So that was my message.
Right.
Then it was a matter of, okay, who are the people I'm addressing? Where are they going to go? Grand Tetons National Park was a big national park right along the path. All right, I want people to go there. Let's work with the rangers. There's a rich history of national park artwork. Okay, so that implies a style to go for. Uh, and at that point, I also want it to be kind of scientifically accurate. So here's the Tetons on this side. Here's the sun over here on this side. and here's the relevant information. And it all sort of comes together that way. So in this case, the information, the informing was the key that I wanted to start with.
Okay. And that seems to be something that's really important to your work, which is the conveying the information and the education kind of behind that. So somehow it's like this style is catchy enough and visually appealing enough that it kind of brings the people in, then gives them their information and then sends them on their way.
Right. And part of the reason why I've really been drawn to that education aspect is I've noticed in the last 10 years that this 1930s to 1950s travel art has become a big fad. Lots of people are interested in it. You now see artwork of it everywhere. You go to national parks, and it's like there are these companies that will take photographs of, say, a lodge in a national park, run it through some sort of Photoshop filter to turn it into a poster, and then sell it. And I rapidly figured out, okay, the market is being flooded with this style. What is going to set me apart? Well, these folks just want to sell a buck. Uh, I I want to do something. I want to do something more with my art. And so the education, that's part of who I am. So let's use art to educate and make education beautiful.
Yeah. And so and I think sometimes that's the thing about art that I really believe in. And I think you know, maybe a layman looking at it might not think of art in that way. It's just like, oh, it's just something beautiful and whatever. But like, so, what do you think it is about the art that gives you that opportunity to kind of educate in a way that really no other medium does?
Well, okay, so the my day job back when I was a university professor was to teach students about astronomy. And
Right.
most of my students were non-science majors. I believe strongly in science education for non-scientists. And those students came into my class, they did not want to be there. I asked if they had a choice, they would not be there.
Right.
But
Yeah.
my goal was that by the end, I would sneak in all this amazing stuff about the universe and they'd come away changed. Okay, so the artwork is kind of a continuation of that. In fact, national parks are sort of the same thing. You go to a national park in the US, amazing dark, starry skies, almost by accident preserved because of the Park Service's protection of the landscape. And so people inadvertently get their eyes open to the universe.
Right.
So you sneak in this science, life changing, world changing views in ways that people don't expect. And they don't turn themselves off from it. And in my case, the art is that sugar coating that gets the medicine, if you will, the medicine of the science through to them.
Yeah. 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 It somehow, it gives something that satisfies the soul along with, kind of just the dry facts that which people kind of associate with science sometimes.
And the other thing is art is something that evokes an emotion, or at least good art should evoke an emotion.
Right.
And I know for me, as a kid, I wanted to travel, and so I would read magazines. I'd see this poster art, this travel art that would promise these far off exotic locations. And it's ironic because I grew up in Alaska. So I mean
Okay.
it's a far off exotic location, but yet I kept thinking about deserts. My goodness, I wanted to see a desert. I had a glacier down the road from where I lived, but I wanted to see a desert. Anyway, so so for me, for art, and especially this travel style of art, really evokes a strong emotion in me, this wonder that I had as a kid. And I want people to have that sense of wonder when they see my artwork and learn about maybe where an eclipse is happening, or that there are geysers on a moon of Saturn, or that there's the universe on display whenever you go to some dark place.
Right. Yeah. And so, so you referenced it a couple times, but I want to ask. So, what do you do now? Like, what is kind of your day job? Like, are you making posters all the time? Or like, what? how does it work now, that you're a retired professional astronomer, so to speak?
So I will. Okay, I'll be honest here. That 2017 total solar eclipse was good to me. Um,
Okay.
that year, I managed to do enough work with the national parks and communities along the path of totality that my faculty job essentially paid the taxes on my art job that year.
Nice.
Yeah. And so at about that point, I also started getting pushback from my university saying that I should start doing less work with national parks and other places. And so I decided, one of these jobs is really fulfilling me emotionally and is growing. The other one, not so much. So I was able to retire, and I'm now working full time. Moved to Central New York, Ithaca, New York. We've got lots of friends, and now I've got a home studio. This is my home studio, and I work specifically now with national parks and other organizations. I'm doing a project for New York State Parks right now, but I've also worked with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy and other green organizations to promote the things I want to promote: science and environmentalism and sustainable living.
Awesome. Yeah. So I mean, with all of that, that's interesting. Now, so now that you're working professionally as an artist and you're creating work for all these different places, do you get to work on your own ideas and your own concepts? Like someone was asking in the chat that they really liked your exoplanet travel posters, and if you had plans to make additional ones for kind of the new finds, such as like the TRAPPIST system and stuff. And it just makes me think, like, are you able to choose your own subjects now, or is it, you're producing art for other people, and does that bother you? I don't know, like that's the game as an artist, right? But I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
Oh, it is actually something I'm battling right now. Ooh, but I actually I do have a poster about the TRAPPIST system on my website. So check
Oh,
that one out. And that one, I okay. So there was actually, when I was planning things about solar eclipses, turns out if you stand on one of those TRAPPIST worlds, within the air bars reported by the scientists, the next planet inward should actually eclipse the sun completely, just like our moon does here on the Earth. So you get one planet eclipsing another planet.
oh,
So I did that in the poster. But no, but you're absolutely right. One of the things I'm running into is, yes, this interplay between, oh, I have to draw artwork. I have to draw artwork for this other group. But what do I want to draw for myself? In some instances, like the New York State Parks, the tack I'm taking there is a connection with the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 1930s. That is something I really feel very passionate about. So in this instance, I love the idea of drawing these. It's what I would want to draw. Um, but a couple of years ago, I rafted the Grand Canyon as part of a tour that I was helping lead, where we took along a telescope. And one of the things I did on that 14-day rafting trip was take along a sketchbook and sketch my way down the river. And gosh, I've been meaning for 2 years now to go and do something with those sketches, and I still haven't gotten around to doing it. So yeah, there we are. So sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes I'm drawing for the buck, but sometimes I'm drawing for myself.
and but sometimes, the happy coincidence sometimes happen where what somebody else wants you to draw is also what you want to draw.
So for instance, one of the things is well, when it's not a pandemic, I lead solar eclipse trips around the world.
Okay.
Most recently, last year was in Chile in 2019. And so for myself, I draw one of these travel posters, working with the community or just myself, for every one of these eclipses that I lead a tour on. So, hey, if people want to buy it, great. They're on my website. But part of it I do for me. So I've drawn an eclipse poster for every eclipse I've gone to see.
Nice. Very cool. So was looking for, there's just a couple questions that came through in the chat. Astro Wise was asking about infographics. Like, do you use this style for like infographics, or she specifically asking like for sun safety, for example? Is it that kind of that kind of
S- s-
educational, or more like, you know, I know that one of the big things that you do is like the half the park is after dark,
Right.
kind of that slogan.
Yes. In the case of eclipses and infographics, there have been some, but most of it has been just trying to get people to go see the thing.
Oh,
And then for some of the posters, like the very first eclipse posters I did were actually for an annular eclipse back in 2012.
okay.
And and yeah, one of the big things is since it's never safe to look at what an annular eclipse with the naked eye. I made sure, all right, how do I get this information in there in every single one of those posters that you always have to be sun safe, always use glasses. So there's a little bit of that, but yeah,
It's
yeah,
more about kind of the emotional reaction to it.
right, right.
Yeah. So, is that the? I think I might have seen it on your website, but I can't remember. Can't bring it up at the top of my head. But is the Half the Park is After Dark? Is that also in collaboration with the International Dark Sky Association?
Sort of. So half the park is after dark is actually a phrase I've trademarked. It's one I came up with back
Oh,
when I
nice.
was doing this. So thank you. So that's my slogan, if you will, for my work. But I after coming up with that and after working with the national parks, I also was elected to the board of directors for the International Dark Sky Association.
Okay.
So I've been working with them for almost a decade now. In fact, I was just awarded an IDA Dark Sky Defender Award for 2020. So thank you.
Amazing. Cool.
So I find ways to work with all those dark sky parks and help promote them. In fact, one of the ones I'm promoting right now is Mayo Dark Sky Park in Ireland. I just designed a poster for them, which will be unveiling this Saturday at their online Dark Sky Festival. So.
That's amazing. Very cool. So I mean, what is it about the dark sky, the night sky that you think is so important for people to see and experience?
The night sky is our window to the universe beyond our atmosphere. We inhabit the universe, and when you're someplace dark and you see the Milky Way, you are seeing the largest structure visible to the naked eye that shows that we're part of a larger universe, and it's breathtakingly beautiful. Um, but it's something that through artificial light over the last 150 years, we've managed to blot out from our daily experience. And I like to tell people, imagine if where you lived suddenly became so smoggy that you could no longer see the mountains around you or the end of your street. If your daytime sky was just a uniform white haze, wouldn't you feel sad? Wouldn't your beauty that you inhabit, wouldn't wouldn't the beauty be sucked out of your life just a little bit? And that's exactly what we've done to the night sky. We've put this orange haze up there that's blotted out these millions of stars that every generation of human beings used to be able to see up until only a couple generations ago. And most folks don't even know that we've missed that anymore. The students that I used to have, they stopped looking up at the sky because there's nothing up there to see at night. And
Right.
so, God, the look in their eyes they'd get when I'd take them out to someplace like Joshua Tree National Park, it was just, oh, I want everyone to experience that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how, you have these posters, and they have the message and the education. So how do you see people respond to that artwork? Do you see it inspiring them and bringing, changing how they behave or what they do? Like how are people responding to this work?
The response has been great. It started with park rangers. I did the artwork originally for this book that I was writing about astronomy in the national parks called Stars Above, Earth Below. And when it first came out, it got good reviews, but park rangers loved it. And they started using it as a guide for how to give night sky programs. And so, so that right there said, all right, I'm about to reach potentially millions of people who go to these ranger programs at night. And those rangers, they loved the artwork, and they kept asking me, well, would you be willing to draw a version of this See the Milky Way, but with a Joshua tree in it, or with an arch or something? And so I've now done about 50 or 60, or I've lost track of how many different park posters. But the rangers, I give them to the rangers to use for free to promote their programs. So it's out there. It's being used. In the last decade, I've seen national parks. Well, oh, here's an example. About 8 years ago, I was invited to be the keynote speaker at Grand Canyon National Park for their Night Sky Festival.
Wow.
And on the day of my talk, one of the park rangers introduced me to the park superintendent. And so, this is a big time dude. This is, and he came up to me, he said, oh, I am so glad you're here. Astronomy is so important. Half the park is after dark. And I realized I just had the superintendent of Grand Canyon quote me back to me. I've had an impact here.
That's amazing.
And so the fact that my art is on display in parks, that I think I've probably sold, like, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of posters at this point. I know it's out there, and I know I've had some impact on people, and so I'm just happy with that.
That's awesome. Do you think that you would ever, a lot of the posters are kind of about how we interact with the night sky. Have you thought about bringing your work in dark matter, and then making posters about dark matter?
As a matter of fact, so over my shoulder in the back there are 4 posters I designed for the National Radio NRAO, National Radio Astronomical Observatory.
Okay.
So it's the very large array, the VLA in New Mexico, and different telescope arrays. And one of the things that when I was asked to design these, I said, okay, I will do these, but I don't want to just be of the mechanical telescope. I want to portray the science that's actually been revealed. And so one of them for the VLA is of dark matter, because I use the VLA to study dark matter in colliding galaxies for my PhD. So that poster back there is essentially my PhD thesis.
Nice.
Hopefully this time people will actually see it, as opposed to the actual thesis that was referenced very few times.
Well, there you go.
There we go.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why you should be an artist.
Yes.
Wonderful. So what's next for you? What are you looking forward to working on?
So these posters for the state parks with the Civilian Conservation Corps connection is something I'm really looking forward to for this upcoming year, because heaven knows we need new jobs programs, new investment in a green infrastructure. So I'm hoping in some small way to help push that. I'm looking forward to the parks and travel being back open again. A number of the artwork that I did for eclipses and travel, well, nobody was able to travel. And so that's been sad and disappointing. Yeah. But I've also got something coming out next spring. A beer company working with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy employed me to draw some beer labels. And those will be revealed in March, hopefully in time for people to start through hiking the Appalachian Trail. So that'll be a big reveal, hopefully in March. But who knows? Who really knows? Looking forward, what's going to happen? So yeah, hopefully, yeah. Well, at this point, I'm just taking things sort of one day at a time, 1 week at a time.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like if there is nothing else that this year has taught us, it is just take things literally one day at a time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so where can people go to follow you or find your work or keep up with what you're doing?
So all of my artwork is on my website, which is spacearttravelbureau.com. That's the name of my little company. It's also tylernordgren.com. So if you remember my name, that's just the website. But you can also find me on Twitter. I'm Night Sky Parks. Um, and I'm on Instagram, Space Art Travel Bureau. But honestly, I keep forgetting that I'm on Instagram. So I don't know how often I will respond and post things, but I'm trying to. But in one sense, it's nice being just a little too busy to post things at the moment. But all the artwork is on my website,
Wonderful.
and you can
Cool.
buy posters from there if folks want.
Wonderful. Great. Yes, so guys, if you have anything else that you want to ask Tyler, do so in the chat. This is the right time to do it. But otherwise, it's just been delightful to talk to you. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, thanks. Oh, I love talking about my artwork. Usually when I give talks about this, I get folks asking me all about the science. But this time I actually get to talk about my art.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean that's where I'm coming at it from. That's just I think it's just so interesting, as I've been doing this show, it's been a few months, I guess 4 or 5 months, and I just keep discovering more and more and more like ways that science and art, and especially astronomy and art, are intersecting, and
Yeah.
it's really awesome.
One of the proudest things I was able to do is in 2015, President Obama had his Night Sky White House event, and I was asked to draw the poster for that. And so
Nice.
being able to mix astronomy and education in the White House and President Obama, it was the greatest thing. And I even got to shake his hand too. So
Oh. Yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah, that's
yep,
wonderful.
yep. And he even talked about Carl Sagan that night. So, it's like everything just sort of came full circle. So,
Yeah, that's just really incredible. So one question just came in from IOU. They're asking, what digital tools do you use to create your artwork with? So besides you said you have the tablet and the stylus, and you're using Adobe. Is that any
right.
particular else you have you're working with?
That's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, I mean, hooray for the internet, because I've had a number of commissions recently where people have asked me to draw something for a place, especially during the pandemic, that I just can't get to. So
Right.
I work with them on getting images to get a sense of what a place looks like. Sometimes I'll sit down with Google Earth in order to figure out where things are oriented with respect to the sky, especially some of the solar eclipse posters, trying to get a sense of, okay, where would the sun be? What kind of images to have in the field of view. So,
Okay. Nice. Nice. And your good old tablet, which you said is 10 years old, is still going and going and going, which is amazing.
it
Wonderful.
is. Yeah. I keep thinking, oh, I should get something new. I wonder what sorts of new bells and whistles are available on those things. Uh,
I can't even imagine. I'm not very tech savvy myself, but I just barely get by. Um, Cool. Well, I think there's no more questions now, but it's just been delightful. So all of your links are in the chat. People are loving your art. I'm sure they will go and you might get some posters. People will get them. I know that I would definitely love to have one on my wall. I don't know if you ship to Pakistan or not, but
I can. We'll figure out a way to make that work. So,
yeah. So thank everybody for joining. I just saw that Fenmil subscribed again, so I owe you a happy dance. Here's a happy dance for that. So thank you so much for being here. Come back in a couple hours for the Daily Space, which is your daily science news roundup, and CosmoQuest has all kinds of stuff over the week, so do check the website, cosmoquest.org, and the schedule, and we'll see you around. But thank you for joining me, Tyler. Thank you for being with us on this Tuesday morning as we enter another week of this crazy year. So, all right.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes. All right. See you guys. See you next week.